York's classic rock, Q1043.
Ken Dashow, Q104.3, New York's classic rock. Ken Dashow's Beatles Revolution. Joining me from Dallas, Texas, as I was told it's always said, is Gary Shrum, the Director of Entertainment and Music Memorabilia for Heritage Auctions, with some really cool Beatles stuff. There's a George Harrison guitar, but the thing that you will talk about, but the one thing that is irreplaceable that nobody else could ever have is the Beatles wall from the Ed Sullivan Show. And what we mean by that, I've seen pictures of it, is their famous performance that changed all of America at the Ed Sullivan Show that night, with February 8th, 1964. They signed the wall. And that gentleman you're looking at right now, Gary Shrum, it's being auctioned off. Unbelievable, yeah. Gary. Welcome.
It's an amazing piece. It's the holy grail of anything rock and roll collectible. This is the night music changed forever and influenced many musicians in the future. You know, from Bruce Springsteen to the Wilson Sisters of Heart. Yeah, and what's so unique about it is the size. It's so cool.
And John Lennon drew something on there. John would always draw a cartoon.
All four of them. That's what's really cool. You know, which later on they would continue to do it. You know, Ringo does his artwork now. Of course, John did it all through his life, and Paul's been doing a lot of artwork, and that's cool. It's just the beginnings of so much. But what's so important is this is the night music changed forever.
Here, as little Steven has always said to me, my running buddy when we do live breakfast of the Beatles, on February 8th, 1964, there were probably 200 rock bands in America. By February 9th, you couldn't find a guitar from Maine to Baja, California, anywhere in the United States.
Well, yeah, it influenced everybody. When I was going to school, you know, man, I was buying a guitar as soon as I could afford it. You know, a couple of months later, I had my Fender Mustang. So,
sure.
Yeah, it influenced everybody.
Okay, so they're tearing down the Ed Sullivan Theater. I don't know when or how. Just give me a little. What's the phrase when somebody can prove that something is original? Signed the what do they call it?
The provenance.
The provenance, yes.
The provenance on this piece would be. They weren't tearing down the theater yet. This was at a point when they would have these different rolling backgrounds that they would bring in and out. And this one was one that they just started getting signatures through prior to the Beatles being there. Many movie stars, dancers, comedians. And when this piece started getting old and a little rickety, they took it out. And somebody says, well, gosh, we've got to preserve this. And it was given to a fan, a Beatle fan, who in turn sold it to a bar, basically, down in Louisiana. And it sat on his wall for a couple of decades.
What do you think the original cost was? What do you think the original transaction was?
You know, I would bet it was a couple of $100.
Oh my God!
I wouldn't see it. Well, prices. I'm thinking this is probably sometime in the 70s.
Sure.
So prices at that time, you know, they hadn't achieved anything like we see today. You know, I've been in the business since '73, and I remember selling some sets of Beatle autographs in that period for $60 and $75. And now certain autographs can sell for $8,000, $12,000, $20,000, $90,000. And we sold these Sgt. Pepper signed for just under $300,000 a few years back. So this piece here is
mind-boggling. What the Mickey Mantle baseball card just went for $12 million. Now I know that something, you know, it's the value of it is whatever somebody was worth paying for. But Gary, $12 million for a baseball card.
I know, $12,600,000.
Excuse me, I stand corrected.
Yeah. I mean, to take the 12 away, just say about 600,000 is a lot of money.
Yes,
but 12.6 is just, you know. But you know, bringing that up, look at the rarity of those cards. There's a few of them around, not in this condition, but there are a few around. This is a one of a kind. We'll never see another one of these. And the significance of it is absolutely the holy grail of music collector's item. And I'm so jazzed that we've got it. It's really an amazing piece.
Okay, when does it go up for auction?
It is actually up for auction right now. And the last day is the 24th of this month. We'll have a guitar auction, which will have the George Harrison guitar. Then following the guitar auction will be the 21 high-end pieces of Beatle memorabilia. From this wall to autographs to artwork to some signed lithographs from John Lennon. It's going to be a great event, and we have some marvelous stuff to show off.
I mean, of all the musical instruments and things, I mean, I've got a Hofner bass sitting behind me. This is my home studio, my music room, and
Right?
people sign guitars for us at the radio station and things, but this would be if I had the FU money, as people call it. If I had the unlimited amount of money, that
Right.
wall would be absolutely what I want. But that guitar behind you is nothing to sneeze at either. Tell them about that guitar. I remember
Well,
seeing that
this has
guitar.
got a. Oh yeah, this was written up in a lot of the Beatle magazines way back in the late '70s and '80s when everybody found out what had happened when somebody had got into George's place in Beverly Hills and stole Lucy. And for people that don't know who Lucy is, this is the guitar that Eric Clapton used on While My Guitar Gently Weeps and then gifted it to George. So, an amazing piece, an amazing guitar solo. And somebody comes in and steals his favorite guitar. So, George, got some people working on it. They found out where it got sold, and it got sold to a guy named Miguel who had taken it back to Mexico. He wanted a great Les Paul. Les Pauls weren't real big money back there in the '70s. So, he didn't think anything but being able to pick up a great guitar like that. Then when he's contacted and told that it's stolen, he's like, well, I didn't know that. And they said, well, we'll get you another guitar. He said, well, I want an equivalent guitar. So George set out to find an equivalent guitar for him. They made the offer, and he says, well, yeah, but I really need a Fender P bass as well. So they had to pick up a Fender P bass. And then they took these two guitars down to Mexico, made the trade, and George got his Lucy back. Now, years later, this guitar returns to Los Angeles with Miguel, and Miguel ends up selling it to the shop that we're representing in this great auction on the 24th as well, with a number of other guitars. It's really just crazy. Anybody that's a guitar player, he's looked at this catalog and just, oh my gosh, I want that, I want that, I want that. But
Sure.
our holy grail of this particular one is the George Harrison guitar, or the ransom guitar, as we like to call it.
Yeah, the ransom guitar from George. I'm talking with Gary Schrum, the director of entertainment music memorabilia for Heritage Auctions. All right, so Gary, I want to make a bid on that wall. What do you think my bid would have to be to even be in the running to take a shot at it? And this is what you do for a living, so
Oh,
your
absolutely.
guesstimations are as close as we'll ever get.
Well, there is a reserve from our client of 600,000, and that's what's going to open it up. So you would have
Let
to
me
come in at 600,000.
let me check my pockets. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Okay. And don't forget that desk drawer.
Couch cushions and all that. All right, if all right,
Absolutely.
you're a Beatle fan, I'm a Beatle fan. What do you think the number will be? What do you think the wall will sell for?
Well, I think it deserves to sell for $1 million. In my mind, it is just a great piece. And as we just talked about, it's one of a kind. And it's the largest set of autographs. And each autograph has a picture that each Beatle drew at the day music changed. I just
Yeah.
can't emphasize that enough because it's so important. And I read all the music bags, and people always referring back to the Ed Sullivan Show, the first time they saw the Beatles, and how it changed their lives, and how they were intense to go in and be a musician down the road. And
Yeah.
it's important.
Oh my God, is it ever? And Beatle memorabilia that people didn't realize were of value. My dear friend Billy J. Kramer, who was managed by Brian Epstein, the Beatles, all four of them signed every album to them, to Billy, and gave it to him. I said, "What'd you do with them?" He goes, "I don't know. We're on the road. We're not going to carry
Yeah,
album. Oh, that's nice, thanks, and left it in the hotel, or something happened. I said, you realize that was like your entire retirement with those albums? He goes, well, yeah, now, and I could go on better. Do you know the name Vince Calandra, who used to work on the Ed Sullivan Show?
right.
Do you know Vince?
Yes. No,
All
I
right.
don't.
Okay, so Vince was the right hand guy back then. Sullivan, a staff of 12 kind of was the Sullivan Show. Vince was the assistant producer, assistant floor manager, green room manager. He just did every guest booker. Everybody did everything except for the cameramen and the lighting guys. So
Right.
Vince was there with the Beatles hanging out. They liked him. He's a young guy from New York, from Brooklyn, wise guy, and he went to Shea Stadium with them. And John had written out the set list for Shea Stadium on the back of a Mets lineup card. And they were leaving, and he said, "Oh, John, you forgot the set list." And John said to him, "No, I've got lousy handwriting. A manager, Mr. Epstein, he rewrites it for us." And Vince admits it. He said, "Why don't you keep it? It'll be worth something someday." And Vince said, "Yeah, right," and
Wow.
folded it and put it in his pocket. And then I just looked at him. I didn't ask another question. He said, you empty your pockets at the end of the night, or I took the suit to the cleaners, forgot it was in the
Oh
pocket.
no.
Who knows? And on the back of a Mets lineup card, Gary.
There you go. It just dates that piece, and then that's
Yeah.
another significant Beatle collectible that got away from. I hear these stories all the time. Having, I opened up the first Beatle store back in '76 in San Diego. So Beatle collectors from all over the world would come in the store and tell me their neat story about going to a concert, trying to get an autograph, whatever it may be, and the things that they had. And then later on, they got married and got a job and had kids. And oh, I don't need this stuff anymore. And oops, so much of it went into landfills.
Oh,
But again, that's what makes a lot of this stuff so rare. You can't come
yeah.
up with it because it's not around. And some of the other Beatle items that we have in the auction, like the George Harrison boots, and we got an incredible handbill that was an invitation to a gig late December in '63. And this girl had the insight. It was a greet and meet. Beatles could do that before Beatlemania went nuts. And people would queue up and get in line and get whatever they had autographed. And she just got basically it was her ticket, which was the handbill, and she got it signed. And that's the first one we've ever seen. And that's in the auction as well. There's just so many unique things that came out from that period that is just a piece of time.
God. Gary Shrum, director of entertainment music memorabilia for Heritage Auctions. What you have going up there, to me, you said $1 million. The Ed Sullivan wall, the flat signed by all four of that night, is priceless in its own way. So, yeah, thank you. Zoom in on it. Let's take another look at it. Man, looking at the
Yeah,
drawings.
isn't that just incredible? And if you
It
look to
is.
the left, one of the searchers had played on the show after this point, and just put a little doodle on there, and it's so cool. And then a couple of
The
the girls
Beatles were
that are,
here,
yeah,
2964.
yeah, isn't that great?
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
It's
and
stunning.
the size, it's four. I'm 6'3". I'm here in this glass case, and it's almost as tall as I am. So it's over 4 feet. It's 16 inches wide at the width, the greatest width. It's just a masterpiece. Anybody's house or anybody's office lobby. I mean, this would be a good draw for anybody that would have this if they wanted to, really put it out there, and people could come and visit it and enjoy it in some place, in a museum, or maybe a rock and roll bar or something like that, just where it began from.
Gary Shrum, thanks so much for giving us a tour of this. It's wonderful. And you know what? If nobody bids on that wall because they're just bored with it, maybe me and my audience we can do a collective. we can,
There
we
you
can
go.
we can buy it together. We'll
You
all
can
put in.
you can share it during the year.
Exactly. We'll just send it off to each other. Gary, thanks so much for your time. I'd love to
Oh,
come back to you and have you as the oracle when things like this come up, if that's okay, and talk about it. This is
oh
wonderful.
yeah. I've got tons of crazy stories for you. Absolutely. We just need to talk sometime, and we can make some plans for the future.
It's a deal. Good luck with this auction, and man, I can't wait to see who gets that wall because I want
That's
it so
right.
bad.
Well, everybody just go into ha.com and look up music and entertainment. and you can see what we've got right now, because there's a lot of pieces we didn't show you today that will really blow your mind. And well, like the Beatles 65 original artwork for the American album that came out in 65, you know, only one in the world, and we've got it in this auction coming up.
Awesome, my friend. Thanks so much for your
Alrighty.
time.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.